Hey, this is Andrew Brown, and welcome to AWS Cloud Project Bootcamp, where we continue on implementing API endpoints. So, it's been a day, and I've spun down my environment and spun it back up. And so, as I'm going in here, I'm noticing this is hanging. So I went here, and I saw in here this was pending. I finally eventually got a response. And if you see hanging after you restart your environment, it probably has to do with the connection to RDS not having the right IP address set. So we did set up this code last time to set that Gitpod IP address, and it might not be taking effect for some reason, so sometimes it might work and sometimes it might not. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to make sure that I can establish a connection to my RDS instance just to rule out my developer environment. So I'm going to just cd into the backend Flask directory here, and we are going to run our bin db connect script. We'll do prod and see if that hangs. If it hangs, then we know that it's going to be that IP address that's not being propagated. It shouldn't take this long to log in, so it's definitely hanging. I'm going to stop that, and then we'll run our RDS command, and that should resolve our issues, hopefully. I don't know why it's not seeing out the contents of that directory. Let's just make sure that that file is still there, and I did not lose it. It is there. Mine's called db. Oh, there's our problem, right? So let me just go over here for a moment. You know what? I think I'm in the wrong repo. I'm in week 4. I'm supposed to be in week 4 again. So that's my problem. I was wondering why I was having issues. So yeah. But anyway, if you see hanging like that, that's probably the reason why. But we'll go over here and I will open up the correct environment that I'm working in. And I'll see you back here in a second while the environment spins up. All right, so I'm back. I've done Docker Compose up, and we have our actual correct branch, which is week 4 again that I'm working in. But let's take a look here and see what our problem is. If it's something else, we'll go to network. I don't see anything here. I'm going to give this a nice refresh. And there's no issues. Data's coming back. So the thing is that we just don't have any data. I think that's what it is. There's no data yet because we have yet to make a write action. So this is totally fine. So let's go ahead and sign in. And so I made it Andrew at exampro.co. Mine was capital T. Testing, whoops. Capital T testing 1, 2, 3, exclamation mark, and we'll sign in. And I'm logged in. Again, no data because we haven't created a CRUD. So we need to hook up this action in order to see something. That's what we need to do. And I'm noticing this is a bit off the line. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I don't know why. I was gonna say maybe it's because I zoomed in, but my CRUD's off a bit here. And this is the issue: is that when you only work on Mac and you go to Windows and it's slightly different, that's why you got to check both systems. So at some point I'll fix that because that really is bothering me. But let's focus on getting this endpoint hooked up. And I haven't prepped anything at this point, so we are really just going at it, and we'll figure it out as we go. So we know that we have a bunch of services in here, and we have a create activity. So in here, this is where we will want to create our record. Okay, and I'm not sure what this wants to pop up. We'll just say allow. So this is less of a problem later on. But the idea is that we need to create or commit the code here for the message. So this shouldn't be too hard. If we go back over to home activities, we'll just look at what we were doing here. So we were doing this SQL. So we'll say SQL triples here, and then down below here, triples here. We'll say select, or not select, but we will commit this to the repo. So this would be like an insert into. So insert into blank, and I believe it's values like this. And so that should do what we need to do. If we go over to our schema, I usually pull that up a lot to just remember what things look like. We have, where is it here? It's in the DB directory here, schema. So activities has a user UUID. We don't have to set that. The user UUID, we do have to set that. So that's something that's important. So we'll just go here and say UUID. And I'm just going to leave it blank for now. And remember before we used F in order to do interpolation here, so we definitely need to set this. And we'll bring this down here. I just like it like this. I find it easier to read and to work with. And so here we will want to have that value. You see me kind of switching between the syntax, like putting dollar signs and stuff in, there. It's because I know a lot of languages, and so I get them mixed up quite often, but I generally settle to make it correct over time. We do have to provide a message, so we will place that in next. So we'll just say message, which is up here. And we'll paste that in there like that. Oops, allow, whoops. It's not doing what I wanted to do. And so this needs quotations around it. This needs quotations around it. And so one thing that we might be wary of is the fact that we are placing these values directly in here. And so they're not being sanitized. And so that might be a security concern. Because when you have SQL, you want to sanitize or just make sure there's no dangerous data being included into it. So maybe there's like a Python thing that we can use to make sure that stuff is okay. But those are the two things. The other thing is to set the expires at. Now here we didn't set it to not null. We set it to be like you don't have to set it, which we actually do have to set it because that's what the TTL is for. But anyway, what we'll do here is maybe refactor our code a little bit because it is a bit of a mess. And also this part probably needs to get called down after all the validations. So maybe what we can do is make a new function here and call it def validations. And then pull a lot of this code up here. So what do we need to pull up here? Well, there's this stuff. So maybe we can... I'm just trying to decide how I want to reorganize this code. Because really, like, all this stuff is okay. It's more so that it should reach a point. If there are errors, then return that back. If it's not, this is where we call our SQL. So maybe instead of this, we could just write this where it'd be to save or create activity is probably what we really want. We'll just write self in here. I think that's what we can do for that. And so what I'll do instead is make a new function below all this. We'll call this create activity. And we'll just figure out how to refactor this as we go. I just haven't really decided how I want to do it, so that's why there's a bit of confusion there. And I think we need parentheses around here. Because this is not Ruby, we can't just optionally put things in like that. So I'll go down here and grab this part, and we'll place that here. And you can see that this requires some input. So we will need to have the user UUID, the message, and the expires at time. So those are the three values we will need to insert there. And then once that is done, we can go over here back to our home activities where we already have some code. And we're doing this pool connection stuff. So we'll just grab this here and we will paste it down below. And then from there, we want to just commit it. So I can't remember what it is. I saw that we had it in our Lambda. So let's take a look at our Lambda as a reference. And for this, it's just commit. That's what I thought it was. But I noticed that it's being done on the connection as opposed to the cursor. I'm just curious with the documentation, so we're going to just look that up really quickly. This is called, I'm just going to look it up for 3. And we'll take a look at the documentation here. And I remember that we have that cursor object, so let's go and take a look at that. And on the right-hand side, if we click this, we might see commit. Do we see commit? No. So it must be done on the connections. That's totally fine. We will go and follow that there. So we'll do connect, con. Where is it? Don't know why it does that sometimes. It's very frustrating. Con, commit. And so that should commit that code. Now, I don't think our error checking is the best, but maybe that's something we'll have to work on. I'm going to grab the try for now. And we will put this in here. And yeah, you know, like this is the syntax that Baco is using, and I'm not using that syntax. So maybe we should take a look here at doing it this way as opposed to that way and see if there's any clear advantage over it. Because I'm not really a huge fan of not having it self-closing. Okay, so yeah, so like this one, it's doing it this syntax as opposed to the other way. So how do we handle errors though? Let's see here. Connection can be used as a context manager. That's fine. When the block is exited, if there's a transaction open, it will be committed or it will be raised. That's fine. So you think they'd have like an example of error handling here? So we'll just say error handling. I'm just trying to see if there's one with the syntax that I'm using. I just don't know what you call these. Are those called blocks? Let's see here. Let's go to the top here. I'm just trying to understand what they want to call these blocks, I guess. Because in Ruby, we'd call those blocks. So it's a error handling with block context. Maybe that's the word we're looking for. Back in a second and see if we can find a solution here. While connecting to Postgres. Exceptions that occur while executing SQL. That's what we're more interested in. So here we have the connection, we have an execute, and then it shows the exception around the execute. So yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, it'd be nice if there was a way that we could do it with these things that automatically close, but I'm not seeing a syntax for it. But I can see that there is stuff around the executions here. So I guess we'll have to do it the way that Baco is doing it because that seems to make a lot more sense. So we'll go here and I'll put a, whoops. Let's go grab his code, basically. I'll just write it by hand because this never seems to want to work correctly. So we'll do triples there. And I'm just going to go ahead and, oh, well, actually, we do have to do it via the pool, so I can't exactly do it that way. So I'd have to do connection, con from the pool, like this. I'm going to just assume the syntax exists. I don't really know for certain. And then we'll have the cursor, which be con cursor. And then I guess we're executing this way. We'll indent this so we have less of a problem. And we'll go here and we'll say accept. I think that's what it was there. Yeah, we'll take it like that. We'll paste that in. And they have this function. What does that do? Anything special? Define a function that handles the parsing of pi2 exceptions. I mean, that sounds good. We'll take that function. And I'm going to go put it in my DB directory here. We'll just make this a loose function. I'm just going to shorten it so that it's easier for me to import. We'll go to the top here. We need to import some stuff here. So we'll go from lib.db and import pool. And we want the print. I'm just going to call it print error. Print SQL error. I just don't want to be typing a billion things here, so we'll just do that. And so then down below here we can do print SQL error, and then just pass the error in like that. Unindent does not match any other one. Sure. I have a lot of trouble here today. There we go. So maybe that will give us some better error handling here. We're not using number 2, so I'll just take out the number there. I'm going to assume that it's probably going to be very similar. If it's not, we're going to find out. But 2 and 3 look pretty similar in terms of syntax. Oh, and interesting, they'll do a rollback here if it fails. I guess the question is, would we want to do a rollback? Probably. Not that we even have a transaction. So generally when you have this, you are setting up a transaction. I don't know if this has one in here. The previous transaction before anything started. So yeah, I don't know. I would assume that we'd have to say that there's a transaction happening before we'd roll it back. So I'm not really certain if we actually need this line here, but I'm going to leave it in just in case we want to bring it back. And we could refactor this code a bit more if we would like to make it easier to work with, because we are just trying to execute and commit some code. So we could go here and simplify this further. So I could just say like def SQL execute. And we could wrap this stuff here. So then you would go up here and just do SQL execute. Or we could write query instead, query. Because these wrap them. So yeah, we'll just do query commit. Just trying to think of a good name for this. And then what we could do is grab this code and put it up here, and we'll just simplify this a bit. So instead of having to do all this stuff, we can now just do query commit and then pass our SQL. So we'll go up here and we'll do query commit. We'll go ahead and grab that. Start to consolidate our code into one place. This thing requires a pool connection, so I guess it'd be nice if this was somehow wrapped in something, because it'd be nice if we could just call like query commit or pool query commit or something. Maybe we could put this in an object instead. So instead of having to do all this stuff, we could just be like import DB. And so in here, I could just make a new class, call it DB. And then we would create it. So we go DB. And we just say DB, and then we return that. And so from there, we can just use that. So I suppose we could do that. And I'd rather do a run on it. I don't know, like you can put an initialization function, but I just always prefer using it that way. I'm just trying to decide here. You know what? We'll look at how to initialize. So initialize a Python function. I know it's like underscore under. Yeah, that's this thing here. I just don't know because I don't use Python that often. And I know there's like the self that gets passed through. So we'll just try to give this a go and see if we can get it to work. So we will go ahead and paste this in. And from here, we can then do this. And we'll bring the connection pool over here. Let's see here. Invalid syntax for connection URL. Why? Oh, we're missing a colon here. There we go. All right, so we're starting to define our own class here. I could be like, here it is to get pool or init pool. So bring that down here, and then we can just call init pool in here. I assume we have to do self. And then we could bring these other actions under here, and I think that would be a lot nicer to work with. So I need a class instance variable. I'm not exactly sure how to do that in Python, so I'll make my way over to ChatGPT and we'll just go ask what it is. Instance variable in class for Python. Okay, so it's just as simple as doing self. Okay, that's pretty easy. In other languages, you have to do extra definitions, but I guess here it's easy. So we'll just do self.pool, and that way we'll be able to reference pool anywhere now. So that is good. I guess the question is, can you access a pool outside of it? If we don't have to, that'd be nice. We can bring all these other things under here as well. So I will go here and grab this. We'll put this under here. And we'll fix our indentation. I'm noticing that we have like double indentation here, which is not that great. And so we can go here and type in self. And then we have these functions. And I'm going to bring them down here as well. We'll indent them. Okay, and so now we have something that is a bit more simple. I'm not really ready to finish the implementation of this here. Do we have create here twice for some reason? Oh, because we refactored that. That's totally fine. So for the time being, what I'm going to do here is just comment this out. I want to make sure our home activities is still working because we're kind of making a mess of things. I'm just going to comment this out for a moment. And we'll go over to home activities where we're using this. And instead of doing this, we're just going to do db. And we'll go down below and see if we can refactor this a bit. And it would be nice to always print out the SQL, at least when we're debugging, so we can see what we're doing. But I know that we have a few different kinds of queries. So we have the query commit up here. And I'm just going to bring this down so this is a bit more orderly. Go up here. And so query commit. So when we want to commit code or commit data such as an insert. Okay, so that would be that. Then we'll say def query object. When we want to return a JSON object, we'll say query array. When we want to return an array of JSON objects. Just so we can remember what these are. So yes, we have the connection pool here, so this is all good. So I guess I'll bring this over here, even though this doesn't have the best of error handling, like our other one here, but we will just work with what we already have, so we're not complicating stuff. And here we can just do self. And then we want to pass in the SQL, which we do there. And if we want to, we could also print this SQL out. I'll just put a blank one here, so makes a new line. All right, and so instead of doing all this here, what we can now do is just type in db.query array. This is actually for, I got this backwards. This one is for an array. And this one will be for object. The thing that matters here is, and I just took it out of here, but what we need to put in here is to wrap this SQL in that query. So we can just say, or maybe we could just write query as the variable here, and we'll say SQL. We'll say wrapped SQL. Wrapped SQL. And that's for that one. And I think this one would be very similar. We do fetch one because there's only one, it's just a string, so there's nothing else. We don't need an array of it, right? And so in here, we're just going to change this to object. And maybe to make this even more clear, we'll just do square braces here and say array. And I'll bring this one down here. Call this object. If we want, we could just, let's clean this up, just do this. think that should work. Okay, so we have those two defined. We know the first is going to be a tuple, so I'm just going to go here and do JSON 0, and then we'll say return here. And so that will return JSON. We could even indicate that it's returning JSON by writing JSON in here. So query object JSON, if we want to, because that is what it's returning. Yeah, I'm going to put that in there just so that it's more clear. All right, and then up here, what we can do is we can just now do db.query array JSON, because that's what we want to get back, an array of values. Okay. And then I can just do results here. Return results. So that's a lot more clean. Now, does it still work is the question, because we did do a lot of refactoring here, and I'm not exactly sure, what state this is in. But, we initialize the pool so we can use it down below. And, I'm not, again, super great at Python, but I'm hoping that this just works as expected. So now we'll go ahead and I can give this a test. Just going to double check my code to see if I'm missing anything, like any selfs on these wraps. I think these need self on them, so I'll just do that. On these. And fingers crossed this just works. That was a lot of changes. So I'm going to go into the back end here. I'm going to view the logs. And we do see an error down below here for Python. I don't know why it is in this interruptible mode here, because I definitely did not ask it to do this. Maybe we included that when we brought in the error stuff in here. No, I don't really see it. Is this still running? Yeah, it's still running. So I'm going to go back over here. I don't know why it's doing that. That's what happens when you copy paste code in, but I'm assuming it might have something to do with this, but we weren't using that function over there, so I'm not sure why that was showing up. Anyway, we'll go back here, we'll give it a refresh, and we will see what happens. And we have an error. It says takes 0 positional arguments, but 1 was given for the init pool, which is fair. If we go up to init pool, it doesn't take any parameters in here, so that seems fine to me. Init pool takes 0 positional arguments, 1 given. I don't understand this stuff, right? I don't understand why it does that. Maybe I just don't need to put self in there. Init pool is not defined. I didn't mean to refresh that page. So I'm going to say Python class call a function, a member function in another member function. Okay, and so this one seems to be using self as well here, so maybe that's what it's expecting, and that's something I just don't understand about Python, okay? If it works, that's fine. I'm not too worried about it. We'll go back over here and see the logs again. And we'll try this again, see if we get a different error. And so we're getting the same thing. So I'm going to put self in all these. If that's what you're supposed to do in Python, whatever. Whatever makes it happy. I'm going to go here and type in SQL, because that's supposed to take SQL. We'll go here. We'll go here. We'll give them self everywhere. If that doesn't make it happy, I don't know what to tell you. There we go. Let's see if it stops complaining. We get a 200 here, so no errors. I guess my thought is that, again, we don't have any data, so it has nothing to display. So I think our code is working correctly. We'll go ahead here and say refactor the DB library. All right, we'll just keep working on that and seeing if we can make it easier to use. Now we're using prints here, but we should really be using the logger, and maybe I'll go update those at some point here. So let's go back over to our create activity. And so we have our statement over here, and we would rather do query commit for sure. So we can do this instead. Now we probably should return data from the database, because in here when we create it, then we could also query the data to see if it is there. So we have create activity, and I would just say like query object activity, because I want to go get that now. And so this should return, I'm just trying to think here. So we inserted, what would query commit return? Because we need to get the ID back. And when you use ORMs, they just kind of automatically do it for you. So I'll go here and return data after a commit from scicog. I really do not like the name of this library here. Ugh. From scicog. Because maybe it does return something. Probably you can retrieve data after the commit using a select statement. Okay, but is this going to be useless? Insert this, commit. That is not useful. Return. That was totally useless. Return the ID of the last commit. Okay, so here it says, you can retrieve the ID of the last inserted row using the returning keyword in SQL insert. I did not know that. Returning, okay, cool. Is that a thing? Didn't know. Sometimes it's useful to obtain data from modified rows when they're being manipulated. Insert update. Using return avoids performing an extra database query to collect the data. Sometimes it seems very useful to do. So returning, etc. So that's something we definitely want to do. I'm going to go over here, and I guess we'll update our query to return that. So here in our insert, we would have to do returning UUID, because that's what we want to get back. Now that did the commit, but it seems like we probably always want to get that back. Returning ID. Also, I'm just kind of looking at this execution command, because see how it has these values here, and it's doing this. This is probably how we're going to escape our data so that it's not causing any issues. And we might have to go update our Lambda function, because I just realized we're probably inserting stuff. So I just want to look this up. So sanitizing inputs, because we want to avoid SQL injection. As is unsafe unless you really want know what you're doing. You can do it from unit testing. We'll sanitize your query. Also, you can use pre-sanitized parameters in your code. Yeah, so I guess we do have to use that, and we'll have to update our Lambda, because we kind of made a dangerous Lambda where people can do SQL injection. We probably don't want that. Okay, so we'll come back here and fix that here in just a second. So I'm just trying to think here what we can do, because we have one where we're committing, and we might want one where we're not committing. So in here we do fetch one, and so in this example they do a fetch one. And I think in most cases we almost always want something back, but then they have a commit here, so I don't know if this will mess stuff up. So what I'll do is I'll go over here to our query commit, and I'll just say returning ID. Okay, and I mean this has to have SQL, right? This has to have SQL statement, commit, commit with ID with returning. And we'll have something very similar here, except the key difference is that we want to return data. So we'll go back over here and grab this. So we have fetch one returning ID. And we'll just returning ID here. And so then what we can do is say db dot this, and then we'll return the UUID because that is what it's going to return back, and that's what we want. And then we can query the data again. Now we could return other fields here and make it more efficient. I'm not too concerned about that. I'd rather not do that. It's just, I don't see any point. I'd rather just make another object and query it again. But anyway, so that's going to return that value. And I guess the question really is, how do we plan on handling this for sanitization? Because this obviously is not the way that we should be doing it. We should be using that S command. So I guess the thing is that we want to be able to pass two parameters. And in here, what I would want to do is pass them in like that. And so we need to kind of like splat that. So how to do splats in Python. I bet it's in my beginner course. I just don't remember how. And so what I'm saying is that we could pass like a tuple or something or some kind of thing and then insert it that way, but I'd rather use a splat for that. Splats are, they're not called splatting in everything, but splatting is a way to pass variable number of arguments to a function. So that's the idea. There are two types of splatting in Python, args and kwargs. So args is used to pass a variable number of positional arguments. So 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, makes sense. kwargs is used to pass variable number of keyword arguments to a function. So it's very similar, but this one is like that. So we are not using kwargs because that isn't what we need. And so we'll use this instead. And so what we'll do is go to our file here, and we will say args on the end like that. We'll need it for here as well. We're going to probably need it for all of our queries, but we'll just focus on one for now. We just make it shorter, like return ID. I don't know. I think returning ID was actually clear with returning. Returning ID. I think that was fine. We'll just go back and change that to that. So this will take those in here, but now we need to pass them to execute. So if we go back over here, let's just see. We could say like expands a splat as an argument to another function. I feel like it's going to be doubles, or it might be the same command. Yeah, it's just this. Okay, so that's pretty easy. So we can go here and say args on this. Whoops. This is on the execute, so we can just do args. So now if we go up here, we can go and change this to be those S's. I'm going to go back over and check out our command. I'm going to look at the sanitization. So we have %s. I wonder if it already escapes it as a string. Because I remember when Beka was doing it, he wasn't escaping strings at all, so it probably wasn't necessary. So let's go take a look. Just looking for SQL injection here. So here we have the values, and it doesn't look like we have to do the double quotation, so we can take this out. Okay. And we'll fix that issue there. That means that we'll have to go back to our Lambda, but let's just make sure that this is not causing any issues. I guess we should just go fix that in our Lambda right away so we don't forget. So what I'm going to do is go over to our Lambda here, and I'm going to tweak this. So instead of it being like this, we will go here, and I'm just going to grab these values here. We'll just say parameters. And we'll expand that, parameters. You can say params for short. And then up here, we can just do the S1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just cleaning it up a bit. Okay, so now we have a much cleaner function here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and copy that and update my awful code. You'd think I would remember this, but I knew I was doing something wrong. So we'll make sure I'm in the right region. I'm doing everything in CA Central, so we'll switch that over. So again, we're doing this so that we don't have SQL injection, because if we have SQL injection, people can read and write anything they want from our database. So I'll go ahead and paste that in, and that'll be our deployed code. We will have to test this at some point. I think that it probably works as long as I didn't introduce a syntax error. So I'll wait to solve it later. I'm not too worried about it. I want to stay on task here. So yeah, you can see that we have this. So I could probably now just clean this up a bit. I'll leave those down there because we might be adding more fields here. Okay, so there we go. So that is now improved. So we will need this for other arguments, but let's just get this working first, and then we will bring the code in everywhere else. Okay. So we have a create activity. We will want to return an object. So maybe we'll just defer that for now. We'll just return this junk one. And we do have all that validation up there. That seems fine. So we need to pass in values into here. So we will need the user UID. So the user UID is something we don't have because we have to look it up. Because we have their handle, but their handle doesn't tell us who they are. So we could write it in our query down here and just do it in one go. And that might be the easiest way to do it. So instead of doing user UID, what we'll do is instead pass in the handle. And we will query it for that. So that is the first one there, because we did this before when we did our seed data. We go over to our seed data here. And we wrote this query. That is basically what we want to do here. So we'll copy this. And I guess now we're bringing these back down. And we'll paste that in. And we'll bring this in here. And so now we have this query here, which returns the user UID. I'm just going to make this a bit easier to read. So I'm just going to bring it down onto new lines. and make this very clear what it is. So this is where we want to pass that handle in. So we'll do %s on this. And so we really do need to pass in the handle. I'm going to assume that it's in the order that it appears. So it'll be this, 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 and this. I kind of wish that we had named things in here. I don't know if we can do that. It would be really nice if we could do that. So here we have this. It says, oh, I really do prefer that. That is much nicer because then it's a lot more clear what these are. So named arguments are supported using this in the query specifying the value mapping. Using named arguments allows to specify the values in any order to repeat the same value. I think I'd rather do that. And so the syntax looks like this. So we'll go over here, take a look at what that is. Okay, so here I'm going to do that instead. We'll say handle. And then for this one is the message. And then we have the expires at. And I think we just have an extra one here by accident. That's aligned with that. So now that means we have to kind of change this because this isn't going to work. So instead of using args, we have to use kwargs. So back in our function over here, we'll put kwargs in front of that. And then I think we just pass it along as is. What does kwargs return? I'm going to assume it's a dictionary or something like that. It's not indicating to me very easily here, but my thought is that kwargs is going to be something like a dictionary. And if we go back over here, I think that we can just pass that as the second parameter we can. So we don't have to expand it. We can just pass it along, I bet, like that. And so that should probably resolve some of our issues there. Here, I want to now explicitly set them. So we'll say handle, handle, message, message, expires at, expires at. And so this would come in here with the now time. And we need to store this in the database. So this is something we'll have to do. This is now as time zone. So if we go over here, what are they doing here? They have a date. So maybe we can just get an example so we don't have to figure it out. Insert a date time from Python into the query, into the insert. Pass a Python date time. To insert, let's see if it figures it out. I assume that's what it is. We'll go over here for a second. Can you let me scroll? Okay, so we scroll to the side here. It looks like you can just pass it in. To pass date time, we use parameterized query date time. I don't think there's anything special, but I guess we'll find out. Up here, it has it with the time zone, so that's totally fine. So TTL off time set. So this is the value we are returning. Well, that's the offset from the time delta. No, it's here. So I'm thinking that this is probably what gets returned. So I'll go here and say expires at. I'm not sure what this is, but we will just do that for now. And we will pass the handle. We call it user handle here. And then we need the message and then the expires at. So that will pass those three values into here. And hopefully this is going to work as expected. So we'll go back over to CRUD. We'll give it a refresh. We'll see if we get any errors, because it might still return errors even though we're not executing this page out yet. And let's see if this works. So we'll go CRUD. We'll say this is to see if my CRUD works. We'll hit CRUD. We'll go down below here. Self is not defined on line 47 of create activity. So that is line 47 right here. That makes sense because we don't have to do it that way. So I'll just do that. I wonder if I can just do this because we're not using this as, we didn't create an instance of this. This is, these are like static functions. These are stateless classes. We're not passing, we're not instantiating anything. And that's just going to reduce the amount of test code we have to write and maintenance. It is a bit more verbose, but that's how I like to write our service objects, and that's how most folks do it here. For this DB object, this is the one case where we instantiate something, but in other cases, you don't really want to do that. I'll go back over here and give this a refresh. I don't see an error. Oh, because we didn't actually make a CRUD. So I am attempting to make a post. We'll click CRUD. We'll go back. DB is not defined. Did we define it up here? No, we did not. So we will go here and bring it back. It's nice being able to see this. We might want to conditionally hide this because we'll only want it maybe for development and not production. So that'll be something we'll have to figure out later on. We will try this again, and we'll go down below, and it says DB object has no attribute query committing returning ID. It is right here, so that it's a lie. But we'll go down below and take a look with returning ID. I mean, we could also make it a little bit more intelligent. If we saw the word returning, we could probably just make it conditional. So maybe we could do that. So I'm going to go over here and regex in Python for the text returning. It's cool. It's using SQL for me, so that makes it a lot easier. So that's what I'm going to do instead. I'm going to use regex here. And then I don't have to have two functions because I just need to conditionally show that in that case. So we'll go back over to here. And we have our pattern, we have our string, so we'll go ahead and grab that code. So yeah, there's some utility in ChatGPT, but you know, you still have to know what you're doing. So that is something that's kind of important. So I'll go here. Whoops. And I'm going to paste this in here. And I'm going to go up here for a second. And why is it not printing out my SQL? Did we lose a line there? I feel like we did. I guess we don't have it everywhere yet, so I'll just copy this and bring it up here for a second. I'm going to get rid of this other one. We don't need two of the same functions. We'll go here, grab this, go up here, and we will paste this in. And yeah, we have returning, which is fine. So this will match it. And if it matches, we know what to do. So this will be is returning. Kind of a way that we can say that. And so that means we'll do this. We'll say if is returning. And we'll take that out here. Indent that. And then again, if it's returning, then we will return a value. If it's not, we won't return anything. And so that is the way we'll handle that. And then we can go here, just call this commit. You got to be careful about adding this level of complexity to the code. Sometimes it's better to be explicit, but I just feel this is a very common action and I don't want to make a mess of stuff. So I'll do that, and that will be sure to return. But this is very reliant on this having this in uppercase like that. If it's not like that, it will not match. So this is kind of a case. Be sure to check for returning in all uppercases. We could make it case insensitive, but I'm not. I'm just going to leave it like that. And we can let future engineers struggle with that choice. Okay, so that should help for that. So now we should see, I guess, if this works. I can't remember what we were trying to do before that. But we'll go ahead and hit CRUD. We'll go back here. Got an unexpected keyword argument handle on line 74. That is here. Maybe we're not supposed to pass it in this way. Let me see how it was done otherwise. Oh, maybe we have to do it this way. I think that's probably it. I mean, it'd be nice to be able to do it this way. Let me just go double check here. So ABC. We did KWArgs up here, right? That is spelled correctly. Can we mix args and KWArgs? Something I don't know. That might be the problem. I don't think it's that big of a deal to, we don't need to have this perfect syntax. I'm just gonna go params here. We'll just change this up a bit. It's not a big deal. This is where we talk about building domain-specific languages, DSLs, where you're trying to make things type a certain way for convenience, and we really just don't have to go to that degree. I think for dictionaries you have to have them in double quotations, the key, right? Yeah, you do. Okay. And we'll just do that. It's not that bad. Okay. The other syntax was obviously a lot easier to write, but we'll just make trade-offs. We'll go back over here, give this a refresh. Not that it needed a refresh, so let's see this work. We'll click CRUD. We'll go back here. My string is not defined. Did we copy something that was junk and we did not take it out? Where is this? Is returning, oh, over here. Yeah, so here we have our SQL. We'll paste that in. And we'll go back and we'll try this again. Sys is not defined. Import sys. Go back here, we'll try it again. Attribute error, object has no diag on DB, line 32. So is that an error coming back from there? Object has no attribute cursor. So it seems like an error occurred and it tried to print out an error and there's something wrong with our error code because we copied it plainly. So in here, there might be something that it is looking for. I don't think so. Zeroing in on this. We'll take a look here and see what we get. No. Oh, this is an extension of diagnostics. So maybe we have to add something to get that. The module contains a few objects and functions extending the minimum set functionalities defined by the DPI2. Okay, well, how do I get this? Oh, and you probably have to build it in custom, eh? So we might not have that, that functionality. So what I'll do is I will comment this out because I don't think we actually have that. Okay. And so now we'll get something else here. So object has no attribute cursor on line number 24. Where is that? Oh, and these are the errors that we've been reporting. We're saying we're asking for that. So this error reporting is working. It doesn't like something about our code. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So it's not really giving us a line for that stuff there, so it's not that helpful. Object has no attribute cursor. So they've had some syntax errors in their code. Maybe there is a syntax error in our code. Let's go take a look at our commit and see if there's anything funny here. So we have the connection, we have the cursor, we execute the cursor, we do commit. Class attribute error. I don't know if that's a generic error for Python, so it might not be very useful. Oh, maybe that's how you get the extras in there. Error codes. I also wonder if what if we need those in there as well. Yeah, so I'm not 100% sure what our issue is there. We'll come back to it in a second. Now what I want to do is get this SQL somewhere a bit cleaner because I like to have my templates in one place. I find that that's a bit easier. So in here, I'm going to make a new folder and I'm going to call it SQL. And this is where I'm going to just start placing SQL files. So here I'm going to do create activity.sql. And I'm going to go ahead and grab this. Cut this. And then I can just place this plainly here. And now I get this nice SQL formatting. And so what we can do is we can also load these templates. So maybe instead of this, we can then go db load. Like we could pass SQL to this, but I'd probably just say like db load SQL. And then here we would just say, create activity. In fact, we could organize this into folders, but I think I'm just going to leave it like that. We could also just assume all the files are SQL, so we could just do that. And then instead we would do SQL. So I'm going to go make that load function. So we'll go down here and say def load SQL. Or we could even just say like template. Kind of prefer that. Template. And we'll just say its name. And so we need to load that file. So we'll go over here. Load text file into variable from absolute path. do that. I don't know for Flask if there is like any kind of helper functions here, but oh, I guess we could work on this here and extract it out. Let's see here. I didn't even think about asking ChatGPT to move SQL into its own file, into its own text file. Load the file in, and pass it to execute. I wonder if it can do that. Just give me the code. Just give me an explanation. I don't want that. So yeah, maybe this will be an easier way for us to work with this. I'm going to go here. And I guess it was as simple as this. I'm going to open up, because I have all this stuff written up about Python, and I just should be using my stuff in my cloud programming course. So if I go here, I have a whole thing on pathing, paths and files for Python. Here it is. So actually, it wouldn't be in here, it'd just be in the code examples. So if I go here to examples, and we go to paths, files, and I go into Python, then I have examples. Because I remember there's like two ways of doing it. There's the old way and the new way. And so I'm not sure which one is better, but I'm going to just use one or the other. So I think this is probably the old way and this is the new way. I think I prefer the old way, so I'm going to do it that way. We'll go ahead and grab that code. So the thing is that we need to have like a root directory for the Flask apps. I wonder if that exists. Flask root project root path. Is there something for that? It says here, app root path contains the root path for the application. This is determined based on the name passed to Flask. Typically, you should use the instance path, app instance path, not the root path, as the instance path will not be written within the package. So here we could get it this way, and then we have app. So we need to have access to app in order to get that absolute path. Okay. So you definitely want this. And I guess when this gets initialized, it'd be really nice to have the app path. Because we do need it. We want to have it like this. I'll just write it and then we'll figure out how to get it in. So in this would be then DB SQL, and that would give us the path, and then we could join the file here. So then I would have the name. I don't really remember how to do interpolation in JavaScript. Or Python, I'll go back to my examples for strings. Strings, unless they actually show me something here. No, nothing exciting. Or we could just, I don't know, do a plus and be lazy. Plus.sql. And we'll just pass in the name like that. There we go. And then in here, we can do template path. Template content. But we still have to get this here because there's no way it would know about that. At least I don't think it would. How to get app Flask in other files. Because there has to be an easier way than having to pass it every single time we instantiate something. App.register blueprint, what's this? create a subcomponent. Okay, so how do we access Flask app in other files? Yeah, like a global object for Flask. You can import the current app from Flask. It stores its reference in the global app object. Okay, I like that. So that makes it a lot easier. I was wondering how we do that. And that's why we weren't doing the logger as well, because we need to reference app for that. So then I guess we just do this. And now we can read from there. So we have a much cleaner way of referencing that template. That's not going to still fix our issue with that code, but we'll tackle that here in a moment. DB template takes 1%. Of course it does. Let's just do self here, okay? There we go. And we'll make it stop crying about that. No such file or directory. Back in Flask instance DB SQL create activity SQL. So we go here. I mean, it sure looks like it does exist. Oh, it says instance here. Well, that's no good. Well, they told us to use instance. Root path. They said that'd be bad if we used that. Okay, now we're getting something that's more normal. So I think that works. So why couldn't we use the instance path? All right, well, it's working for now. And if we run into an issue when we actually package and bundle this, I guess we'll find out. But it said .instance, and that's not very helpful to us. So during handling of the above exception, another exception occurred. Oh, and it's telling us the line. It's on the con cursor. That's its issue. So let's go take a look at that line carefully. I mean, we never did it this way before, so there's no reason to think that this would work. Let's go take a look back at the code and see how the connection URL might work, or the pooling might work. So go down below to scicog3. We'll go over to connection. Are the main wrappers. That's fine. Can I just see some examples, please? It's talking about it, but it's not showing it to me. Advanced topics, connection pools. Ideally, you may want to close when the pool is finished. Failing to call close at the end of the program is not terribly bad. Okay, that's fine. We have the pool here. So if you want to avoid starting to connect to the database at the import time, you may want to wait for the application to be ready. We'll go down below here, connecting life cycles, using connections from the pool. The main way to use the pool is to obtain a connection that way. Okay, but how do we do error handling with it? That's what I don't know. So we'll put in here, connection pool with error handling. It doesn't normally exist. Isn't that great? Doesn't exist. I'm pretty sure it does. So yeah, I mean, they're doing something similar here. I know it's like the older one, but we'll take a look here. So I'm really surprised that the cursor is not working in that case. I'm just trying to find an example of one. So yeah, connection pooling. All right, that's not very helpful. So yeah, I'll have to play with this a little bit. I'll be back here in a second and try to solve it, okay? Okay, I was only gone for a second, but just being off screen helped me focus and think about what I'm reading. It says, object has no attribute cursor. So here it's saying pool connection, and so this connection is returned, and it's saying that this connection here doesn't have an object called cursor. So that's probably what it's trying to tell us. Now, what I'm going to try to do, and I don't know if this will work, but I'm going to try to bring back the width here and see if that can resolve our issue. So here it was width as con, and I just wonder if we can have the code the way we have it with the try on the outside like that, and if it will still work. I just don't know because those are context blocks, and it's a context blocks inside of a context blocks. I would think they would still work. I don't see why it wouldn't, but this is just my lack of confidence in Python. Okay. Again, I like Ruby, but I don't think anybody wants to learn Ruby right now. So we don't see an error there. That's good. We'll go here. Does this work yet? And we'll hit the CRUD button. It says syntax error object. Do we have a different error? We have a different error, so this is good. So that seemed to resolve that issue. I just think that maybe the reason why we have to do this is that it waits until that object is there, and then it's able to reference it, and that syntax is not valid and might be from 2, but for 3 you have to do it this way. But in any case, we are getting something better. So now it's saying that there's an issue with the insert into. So syntax error near or at. And what it should do before it executes it, which is on line 32, here is it should be printing out the SQL statement. And it does up here. So that's useful. I wouldn't mind some coloring in this because I do find this a little bit hard to read. So I think what we'll do is we will see if there's a way we can print color some stuff. So color print output Python. And so yeah, we have some headers here that we can use. The most common way to do this is use print ANSI escape characters. So it looks like we're just using ANSI characters like we were before. So what I'll do is I'll go back over to our what do you call it? I was thinking about grabbing it from our bash script, but we can probably just grab it out of here. I like cyan, so I'm going to just go grab cyan out of here. Or we could do green, I suppose. No, we're going to do cyan. And I'm just going to paste it in here like this. And then we will go back over here, and we need to undo it. So we need the end one, this one here, like that. And I will indent. So cyan, no color. And what I'll do is I'll make a new function here called like print SQL. So we can do that. I'll put a self on there. And then we can pass in the SQL for what it's doing. And then I can just do self print SQL and then do SQL. Sometimes it's nice to be able to substitute them. So here we're showing these and it's not showing the final rendered function. It would be nice to be able to do that because then if we need to debug, we can just copy and paste it into our SQL. But maybe we won't worry about that right now. So here I might also want to put the heading or title. And so that will be this here. And then we'll just put that up here. We'll put title here. Let me guess, it's just this. All right, just put an F in front of it like that. I don't remember how to do interpolation for Python. I have it under my strings section here. Strings, where are you, strings? Primitive data types, maybe. Python. Where is it? I know I have it here somewhere. Printing, it would be under printing. And I'll go to Python, and so I'm just looking for interpolation. So yeah, it is an F. I was totally right. So why didn't that work then? Looks like it's giving me an error. Or is it backticks? No, it's single quotations. In JavaScript, it's backticks, eh? Why does it not like that? Create a new string from the object given. Go back over here. Let's go take a look at my code. So I have a ton of examples. Yeah, it's just F. That. So why is it crying? Well, I don't feel like playing around with it, so what I'll do is I'll just take this out. Because then I could put these in here, right? So I could go and do this, and do cyan. And then I could go here. No, it's not crying, so maybe there was no issue. Oh, I'm missing a colon up here. That's probably why. There we go. And so hopefully that will print out the way I would like to see it. And then we need the actual print statement here, like this. So hopefully that will make it more obvious when we are executing this stuff, because then we can just go here and scroll up and then find it very easily, and we'll see it colored, right? So let's go give that a try. Colon expected here. Just going to make a new line here so that it just auto refreshes. Try this again. I want to see our nice colors here. There it is. So that's going to make things a little bit easier for us. I would probably put a print in front of here with a new line like that. So there might be like a command like print N or print L or something like that. If we go back to the languages here, some will have like an additional letter on the end to print a new line, but Python, I guess, does not have that. So we'll scroll on down below, and we can see that it's complaining about the insert here. This is really nice to have that coloring there. So that is an improvement. So line 1, insert into line 34. On line number 34, which is not true. It's not line 34. It's line 1 of our SQL file there, but this doesn't know that for whatever reason. So let's go take a look at our query and see what the problem is. It looks valid to me, but I'm not writing this stuff all day long. So let's go take a look here. Insert into, oh, we have to insert it into something. So we'll say activities. That makes total sense why that failed. I don't know why it toggles over there. That's kind of frustrating. So anyway, this might resolve our issue. We'll go back here. We were going to go ahead and hit CRUD. And now what do we get? Syntax error on returning UUID on line 14. Now it's actually reporting on the right line, which is a lot more useful for us. Up here, it's showing something else, so we'll ignore that. It's because we have this trailing comma, okay? You get used to writing SQL, you find out that it's always like trailing comma and some basic things here. It is very frustrating, but it is a very useful skill to learn and be able to debug and find out your problem. So it's not that bad to take a look and check. So we'll go there. And we didn't get any errors and it posted. So it indicates to me that it might have worked. So what we can do is go up here and we'll connect to our database. Well, I guess we have to CD into this first. We'll do bin db connect prod. And now we will say select all from activities. And we have one in there. I'm just going to do X auto so I can just see it a bit better. And so that is the one that we put in there. It says, does this work? So we are in good shape. If we refresh, we should be able to see this. And we do. Now it didn't print out what we wanted because we still have that hard coded. So we will go back over to our create activities. And so this is what we want to replace as this content here. Now we could have returned all that stuff in the returning ID, but I don't think that is the best way to do it because we might want to, I mean, it's fine, but I just would rather do this separately because then we'll have this function we then can call in other places. So in here, I'm going to do, instead of create object, we're going to get create activity. I'm going to reorganize this. I'm going to make this a new folder. I'm going to say activity. And in here, I'd rather have this as a create command. So I'm going to go there and then instead call this create. And then what we'll do is we'll have a new file in here and we'll call this object.sql. And so then in here, we can just do select from activities, public activities, limit 1, or actually we'll just say where activities UUID equals the ID that we pass in. So we know that it is, what was it, S, parentheses, percentage, and then we'll say UUID, like that. That is what it is, right? Oh, it's percentages in the front. Percentage S, like that. And then we can return all the things that we want. So we want the activities UUID. We want the activities display name, or not, sorry, message. What do we want? We want this to look like this. I'll just grab this here so I don't have to constantly go over and look for it. Paste that in here for a second. So we need the UID, we need the display name, that's pretty easy. We need the message. We want the activities created at. I don't know why this is not auto-completing for me. It's kind of frustrating. We need the expires at. And again, these probably won't be in the format that we want them in, and we'll have to do some kind of work on them. But that's okay. We'll figure that out as we go. We need to bring in the user. So we'll say left, or we'll need inner join because you really can't have something without a user. So we'll say inner join. All this stuff down here is because it thinks we're doing MySQL. If anyone can figure that out and tell it to turn off, I'd love to know. Again, I don't work in VS Code on my day-to-day basis. I use Vim, so it's a different story there. So we'll say public users on users dot UUID equals activities user.uuid. That's how we're matching them up. And then we can go up here and then just say users.displayName. We probably also want to have the, I don't know why it's not in our mock data, but we would definitely want to have the user's UUID, or at least their handle, I suppose. We'd want their handle, because in the activity, if you didn't have the handle, how would it show? Oh, it does, it's the next one there. Okay. That's why we don't need the UUID, because we're passing the handle along. So message created at, expires at, and this wants to be in the ISO format. We will see what we can do with that. We might be able to do it right directly in SQL, make our own function, or we could do it some other way, but we'll see. So yeah, UUID, display name, handle, message, created at, expires at, stuff like that. So that overall looks okay to me. And we're missing a comma here. Okay. So that's that. We'll go back to our create activity here, and we want to find where this happens. So it's up here where we create our activity. And then if that is successful, it should return a UUID. And then from there, we were going to return our object JSON, just this. And so that would be then query object activity here. Whoops. We want to do that, and we will take the create here like this, and we'll pass in the UUID because that's the only parameter we need here. So we do UUID, and then this is very similar, except instead of it being a query for this, it's going to be query object, and we want to pass in the UUID and the UUID. This is going to return back JSON. I'm just going to do it there so it's a bit more concise. We'll take that UUID off of there. So coming back to our DB code, we did change a little bit here. So I know that we hooked up this with our query commit has the print SQL command, which is a lot nicer. Let's break this up here for a bit. And so we can take this, bring this down here. And instead of this one, we can just do array. Okay, we'll just fix that there. And then for JSON, we'll do that as well for JSON. Okay. We are passing in the params. We decided that's how we're going to do it. So for the ones on the ends here, we're going to do params. We'll pass in params. Same story here, params, and we'll pass in params. Now params could be blank, so I guess in some cases we'll just give it an empty one. We could also make it clean where it could just default to an empty one here. So we could just do this, I guess. We don't want to have to put it in here. For commit, I don't see why it would ever work without one, but we could probably put one in. If we'd like hard-coded values, I guess there could be a case where we do that. And so now we have that. So this should return that, and then up here, we want to have this set here. Now we're using UUID here, but we're not going to generate UUIDs. We're gonna let SQL do that for us. We're gonna take that out. And here we are going to put the object JSON here. And so now we have this. So hopefully that is a lot more clear. We could bring this on new lines, but I think that's fine. Okay, so this should now return the correct data. If it runs into problems, I guess we'll find out as we go. I'll give this a refresh, and we will go ahead and say, let's make a new post. And we'll click CRUD. I think I clicked it. Sometimes I can't tell if I clicked it. We will get out of here, go down to Python, and we did get an error. Or we did not, I don't know. Oh yeah, we have an error here. So no such file or directory called create activity. Because we changed the structure, I think this is a little bit more organized. So we'll go up here on the left-hand side and just change this a bit. So for this template, what we need to do is just say where it's coming from. So I'm gonna just say activity. So create, we'll just do activity create. And I think that should just work because, I mean, it just should. The only thing is that we put a / in here. And so the whole point of doing this is that if you're running this on a Windows machine, it wants to do slashes the other way. Technically that way, I have to hold up my other hand to show you a / versus the /. But that would be an issue that we could run into. So really, we shouldn't necessarily be hard coding that value in. But I don't care because we're only going to run on Linux. I don't see any reason to run on Windows today. So we're going to just live with that limitation, okay? But if you want to spend the extra time to do it, you can do it. Because then I guess I would have to do this. Like I'd have to go and do this, right? I guess we could do it. It takes doesn't take that much time. Because really all we're going to do is expand these over into here, with the last one being the object. So what we could do is make this our splat args. I don't know if we have to call it args. In Ruby you don't. In other languages you don't, but just for how they're doing it, we probably should match what they want. And so over here we have that join. So what I would probably want to do is, because this is going to return back either an array or a tuple, so I just say, I want to go over to, where did ChatGPT go? See if it'll write some code for me here today. I'm going to just make a new tab. And so in here, I just want to say pass a splat to a function. Within the function, prepend a string to the array. I'm going to assume it's an array, or maybe it's a tuple, I don't know. That's not what I wanted. What does args return as its data type, data object, data structure? No, it's talking about Ruby. Oh, okay. So it thinks I'm doing Ruby. Sorry. Do this for Ruby. This for Python. That's probably why I got weird results. So define a function parameter that accepts any arguments as a tuple. So it's returning a tuple. So that's where we need to know how to work with tuples. So I'm going to go back to my repo where I have my cloud programming stuff. I keep closing that. I don't mean to close that. And we'll take a look here and see what we can learn. So in my examples, where would I put this? Variables, maybe complex data types, and Python here. Tuples. Okay, tuples are immutable. Oh, great. So that means when you have a tuple, you can't add to it. You have to then create a new one. So if you want to append, I guess that's how you would do it. So you do that. Let's take a look at lists. So I don't see a function here to allow me to prepend. So prepend to a list in Python. Can you? Okay, so they say this is the way that we do it. Use a collections to queue instead of a list. Okay, so we'll go back to ChatGPT. Prepend a string to a Python tuple. So does that create a new tuple? That's a cool syntax. Didn't know it could do it that way. So we could do it this way. Prepend end. So that would be maybe the first thing we can do. So we'll go over here. And I'm going to go ahead and paste this in here. And so we have our args. And so in the front of this, I'm just trying to think here. Oh, that's why we want to add app. So we go here and then we add the app.root path. So that will then put it in front. And then we need, on the end, we need to add .sql. So in the last element of a tuple, maybe we should just cast this as a list. This is not going to look very efficient. Anyone who's a Python programmer, they're going to hate me, but I'm going to just do it this way. So pathing, I'll just pathing here. I just don't want to, if there's a reserved word path, I don't want to have that. So I'll just say pathing, and I want to change the last element. We want to cast this as a list. So I think we just do list like this, right? And get last element of list. Freaking jeez. I really do not like Python. It's insane that you have to write it this way. It's just spaghetti to me. Okay, so we do this to get the last element, and I want to change that so that it has its last element to be this. And we'll do this. And then we will print this out. Pathing. And then the idea is that I can go here and then use this and say pathing. And so that should allow us to support this. And that means we can make as many folders as we want. We'll go ahead and save that and see if that works. Now, I didn't see any errors thrown. I mean, did we update our home activities? We did. It's still doing it this way, which is not how we do it anymore. Well, this is right. Oh, but we never extracted this out into its own thing. So this is totally fine. Oh, but we do have an error. Okay. I figured there's some kind of error because we're not seeing what we expect to see here, even though it says it's returning 200. I don't trust it. So OS path join was never closed. Is that true? Looks closed to me, unless I messed something up somewhere else here. I don't think so. We'll give this another go here. Maybe that was an old error. No errors. So what we'll do is we'll use this template as well. So I'm going to go here and make a new one. I'm just going to call this home SQL. And then we can bring in this SQL over here. Cut this out. We'll go and paste this in here. How do we do this for the other pages? I already forgot. I'm going to go here and we'll say create activity. And we'll scroll on down below here. Okay, so because now we'll just have nice code that we can copy and paste constantly. So I'm going to go here and make this home. Probably should call this activities and not activity. I'm going to rename this. I don't like it being called activity. Name it activities. We're just going to stick with plural for that, for all these namings here, okay? And we're going to go here and do query. Whoops, this is query JSON. That's still the same, so we can just go pass in that template like that. And so now we have something that should hit the home page, and we'll see if we get an error. No such directory backend activities home SQL. It's missing the SQL in there. It's because we need to add it in. So I suppose what we can do here is just put maybe this. I don't know if this is a valid syntax, but I'm going to do it anyway and see if it works. Okay, we'll go here and refresh. No such file, backend. Oh, you know what? We're getting pretty close. There we go. I don't think this pathing, I don't think we need this here anymore. It might be useful to see where the file's being loaded. So this is now loading, that's great. You know, I'm gonna do something similar. I'm gonna grab this here. We'll go up here, because I do think it's useful to have this here. And how can we print that path? I'm gonna go back over to my cloud programming. We'll go back to paths. So I'm sure I probably had to print it out or do something with it. It's probably like a join. I just don't know. I don't have a lot of confidence there. Multiple arguments, print pretty. Oh, sorry, we want pathing. Let's go back here. This course isn't done, so when it's more done, I'll be able to find things myself. But in here, I want to just join them together. There's probably a join. Writing, reading. Printing. Yeah, like join path, I would think. We'll go back over to here. Print out a path in Python. We probably just call print. I just don't want to print out the object, eh? Oh, okay, so maybe it's just because I'm printing prematurely the object that we're passing here. Oh, you know what? I'm confused. We want to print out the template path. That's the issue here. So what I'm going to do here is SQL template load. And then we can just put the path in here. So we'll say template path. What did we call the other one for printing? It was SQL statement. That's fine. Okay, so now we can go back here and see if we can see that, because that'd be nice. SQL is not defined. That is fine. We don't need this line here. We're not printing that out. We'll go back. We'll flip back here. And so now we can see that it's loading this path here. It's not showing me the SQL though, which is weird. Maybe we don't have that included. I don't really like these trails here. Just gonna take that out. Oops. Take that out. Okay, now it's loading both here, which is nice. Not sure why we have a space in between here. I don't really want the space. It's because I put it up here. That's my fault. We'll take that out. It'll probably happen for the next one. We can probably change the color to something else. Python cursor or color print. I'm gonna just grab a different color for fun. We'll grab green here. And you might notice these codes might not be the same as the other ones we use in Bash, because they might vary per language. Where was that? Up here. Is that in there? Oh, it doesn't let me undo properly. I think that's right. Undoing and this sucks. Okay, so we'll go back here and we will give it a refresh. Let's see if we get our beautiful colors. Cyan is not defined. That is totally fine. We will go here and paste that in. We'll go back and refresh it. Give me my beautiful colors. Beautiful colors. I'd like some beautiful colors, please. And the L is cut off and it's not coloring it. Come on, give me my beautiful colors. There's something wrong here. We'll go back over to here in our code, or example here. The M is missing. I could tell something was off. We'll put that in. Give us our beautiful colors. Come on now, I fixed it. Maybe we have to have a space after this because it's hugging it there and it's not recognizing what it is. There we go. So now we can see what file is being loaded from where, and then the SQL statement. We could also take out like backend Flask if we wanted to, but I don't mind having the absolute path in there. I don't think it's that big of a deal. So yeah, I think that's going to make things easier. It would be nice to have the line numbering in here, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. So yeah, this is here. We can create one. We'll go ahead and test that. Hello, let's see another one. And we'll go ahead and create that. And probably error it out. DB has no attribute called object. So we might still have, query object here. It's query object JSON is what we decided it to be called. Go back there, we'll fix that. We'll give this a refresh here. Let's try this again. We'll create that. We'll go back here from public activities. It has an issue with that. So we'll go into our object here and take a look. I don't see an issue. Line 10. It's not line 10. That's what it's loading, right? Yeah, object. We'll scroll up, we'll take a look. Oh, it didn't print anything out. Weird. So here, like, you know, we see the statement and then it's printed. And so I'm kind of expecting to see this. I don't know if it's like delayed or something. Off by one, maybe. Didn't print it. It's still having an issue with it. And this is actually on the home activities now, I think. Yeah, this is a 500 error on the, no, it's not on the home. 200, that's fine. I don't see anything wrong with our query. Let's close that here for a second. All I can think is I spelt that wrong. Looks correct to me. Let's go look at one that we know that works like home. Oh, it's the comma on the end, of course. That should have been obvious. Refresh that. We'll go back here. Let's create a new one. Hit create. Object is not scriptable. We'll open up our DB again here. We'll go to line 72. Close a couple of these so we can see what we're doing. Object is not scriptable. None. And I don't see it printing anything out. These prints aren't very reliable. Again, I'm not sure why that is, but it could be just the time it intercepts it. Maybe moving those over to AppLogger will produce better results, but for now, it hasn't been showing us what we want to see, which is frustrating. Yeah, now it's showing it to me over here. I don't know what's going on with that. That's very frustrating. We'll have to look into that. But we'll go back here and try this again. None type object is not scriptable. What is our issue here? What is our issue? Give me a second, okay? All right, so what I did is I just put these two in here to see what was being returned. And so what's happening is that there's none being returned. So I guess the thing is that if there's none, it's not doing exactly what we thought it should do. And obviously if there's none, you can't return the first of it. So maybe what we should be doing here is saying if JSON equals none, else we'll do this. So if it's none, we'll do this. Otherwise, return none. Because that makes more sense. Yeah, but in our wrap here, it should return this empty object, which it's not doing. Because that's what it should return. If it can't find the record, it should return that, but I'm not sure why it's doing what it's doing. So in here, what I can do is just do this, and this is basically the equivalent of what we actually wanted for the empty JSON. This might be just how the how it interprets that thing. It sees that there's an empty object and then it returns it as none. I don't know, but what I can tell is that it's not able to find based on the UUID. So that's probably the issue that we're facing there. We can't really see what parameters are being passed in here. So that might be very useful because maybe this is null and we just don't know. So we probably want to print out the parameters here. So we'll go over to ChatGPT and just ask it to print them out for us. So iterate over parameters. So print out dictionary key and value for Python. There we go. It's as simple as that. So we'll go ahead and grab that. And I'm going to go and go down here. Oops, up here. Because we need to see those parameters. And I'm going to actually go make a new function called self print params. Self print params. And then we'll pass in params like that. And we'll go find another printing function here like def print params. This should be pretty easy. Paste this in. Paste doesn't work half the time. Params. Params, get the items here. And then we have the key and value. So we can make this nice as well. So we will go here and grab a bit of this. And I want to get a different color. We can go blue for fun. And then we'll go down here, put this up here, blue. So whether this didn't cause an issue, I'm going to put a space there. SQL params. And just to pretty this up, I might put print key value. Oh, I guess that's how that does that. I was going to give it a space in front of it, but I think that's fine. I don't think I have to do that. Oh, we have to kill the color or it's going to print it for all of them. That'll be annoying. So we'll go here and we'll just say no color, like that. And so this actually might make sense because, well, we'll see. We'll see what comes back. Because maybe that's what the problem is that there's no UID actually being passed into there. And so I think we have that set up. So I'll go here, hit CRUD again. We got to put self in front of this like all the other darn functions we have here. And we'll try this again. Data activities did not return a valid response. Okay, that's better because it probably returned that empty string that we had here. But I'm looking for these SQL params. Did we call this yet? Print params? I thought we did. We did. Okay. We'll go back over here. We'll refresh. Click CRUD. We'll go back. The view function for data activities did not return a valid response. The function either returned none or ended without a return statement. What is it talking about? Well, data activities, that's fine, but why is it not showing us our frickin' prints? It's not showing us what it's running. It drives me crazy here. Okay, now it prints it out. This is so weird. We got to really figure that out because this is just making things super painful for debugging. We do have params now, so here it says UID none. So that explains why that is an issue, right? Again, I don't think we need this N on here, so I'll take that out so that, again, our stuff is a bit more cleaned up. So I'll just take that out, make that SQL. Not a particularly nice color there, but it is none, so creativity is not what we think it's doing. So we'll go back over here. And so this is supposed to return this value. Oh, it does. But we didn't put a return statement on this. So return UUID is our problem. That's why it didn't work. In Ruby, it automatically returns it without having a return, which is really nice. We'll go back here and we'll hit CRUD again. And it posted it. We'll make sure this works. So is this the correct thing? We'll post it, and it is. Notice that these are wrong. This is not exactly how, like it says 240 minutes ago. I don't even know if it's time zone correctly, so that's another issue. But we have posting, and we've done quite a bit here. We've really enhanced our debugging. Obviously, there is a weird thing where it's not reporting the prints at the same time that we do it. That either has to do something with the reload, or we're using prints instead of the logger, or there's something else going on, or it might just be the nature of working with containers. I don't know. But we'll figure that out as we go. So I think this is a good stopping point, and we will go ahead and commit this code since we achieved something very, very good here. And I'll just say implement create activity here. And I feel like that was a lot for now. So we do have more endpoints to implement. We have to do notifications. We need to do our profile. We need to be able to click into things. There's a lot of stuff to do. So whether we do this all this week is not important. We just need to chip away at it and figure it out. So I might not do all these implementations this week, or if they are, we'll just make sure that we'll just say like, hey, we won't block you if there's that case. What I'm trying to say is we won't try to block you for future tasks. A lot of the stuff that we're doing is going to be cloud related, and implementing all these endpoints is just to make the app work nice. So maybe we can distribute implementing these API endpoints over the course of the next weeks here. Okay. But yeah, that was a big one. And, you know, we did quite a bit there. So yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Okay.